Great Britain, home to the most influential cars ever made. Jaguar, Land Rover, Lotus. But one car stands out above the rest as the most British car of all time. One so iconic that they didn't change it for over 40 years. It's the best-selling icon of British motoring that changed car design forever. This is Decade by Decade, everything you need to know about the Mini. The Mini was built to answer a question: how can you fit the most stuff in the smallest space? The Morris company wanted a car that was efficient, spacious, small enough to conquer the London traffic and still be fun to blast around English backroads. The job was given to Alec Issigonis, who had previously worked on the Morris Minor, another icon of British post-war design. In 1952, Morris and Austin had merged to create the British Motor Company. Issigonis and his team struggled to find a balance between a spacious interior and a small exterior until they made a major breakthrough by turning the engine sideways and making it power the front wheels. Now this tweak changed absolutely everything. The transverse engine mounting saved room in the engine compartment, which made the cabin bigger. Front-wheel drive eliminated the drive shaft to the rear wheels, allowing for a flat floor, which in turn allowed for more legroom in the back seat. 4 fully grown adults could fit inside the impossibly small prototype. Even more impressive than the capacity of the car was the car's maneuverability. The wheels were mounted remarkably close to the corners, which made handling exceptional. Issigonis was so committed to nailing the drive feel of the car that they bought an airfield and converted it into a test track just so they can perfect the handling of it. While other manufacturers built their cars on an assembly line, Morris built their new car on a jig, rolling every piece of framework together piece by piece. The process was slow and meticulous, but it ensured quality fitment at all times. This commitment to precision would soon become the brand's defining factor. In 1959, the Mini was first released as the Morris Mini Minor and the Austin 7, and people went bat crazy over this car. The small stature of the car made it perfect for city driving, and driving it was fun. The company was satisfied with its 4-seater family car version, but they wanted something more. In 1961, BMC prepared cars to race in Monte Carlo. And because the race was in January, the Mini had to compete in icy snow conditions and compete with Ferraris and Lotuses. It did alright, but unfortunately an accident happened and they had to end the run early. Obviously, Mini was never going to win with a 34 horsepower engine, but the handling of it was so exceptional in the icy conditions due to the front wheel drive that they wanted to take it a little bit further. Now this is where John Cooper comes into play. You think, why would they get John Cooper to get involved? The answer is really simple. He designed a mid-engine vehicle for Formula One back in the late 50s, which changed Formula One forever. Cooper changed the 35 horsepower engine to a 70 horsepower engine and souped up the brakes. The Mini was known as the Mini Cooper S. Ever heard of it? John Cooper and the gang took the Mini back to Monaco in 1964 and kicked everybody's ass. They went back the next year and did it again, but on the third year of going back, they were disqualified for the wrong lights in their headlights. What? But they didn't let this discourage them. They went back the next year and beat everybody again. So many people were inspired by the Mini's rally outing that they began to race Minis on their own, both in Mini class leagues and against other sports cars. Now here's the crazy thing about Mini. In over 40 years they never changed the design. Even though they had multiple engine options and little changes here and there to make it safer, the design stayed the same. To the untrained eye, a Mini that rolled off the line in the 2000s would be exactly the same as a Mini in the 1960s. But hands down, the best variant of the Mini that was ever made was the Era Mini, which was made in 1989. This wide-body performance hatchback made 100 horsepower and was the only classic Mini to come from the factory with a turbo. It had a top speed of 184 kilometers per hour, which actually sounds terrifying. The car was built by English Racing Automobiles, a company that specialized in building Grand Prix cars in the 1930s. Mini's parent company at the time, Rover, wanted Era to build a performance-based Mini in the spirit of Cooper S. Only 436 Era turbo Minis were made, and most of these went to Japan, so they are super rare. In 1994, BMW bought the Rover Group and development of a new car started immediately. Rover kept building the classic Mini until 2000, and it was built the same way it had been built for decades, by hand. In the late 2000s, BMW rolled out the new Mini Cooper. Many die-hard Mini enthusiasts weren't really convinced that the new Mini was a good replacement, but it didn't really matter because it was an instant commercial success. As tribute to John Cooper, BMW revived the Cooper S for the sport version. The Cooper S was powered by a supercharged 1.6 litre engine making 160 horsepower, giving it better power to weight ratio than the original. These things are brilliant. The block was cast iron, which means you can tune the hell out of it without worrying about blowing up, but it still kept the handling of the old Mini. The crown jewel in the lineup being the John Cooper Works model. These are the fastest Minis you can buy with turbocharged engines making 220 horsepower. The Mini is truly an icon. In 2015, Britain voted it as the most British car of all time, trumping the horse carriage. It's a small car, equally at home in a crowded city and on the highway.